Bam, ba-da-dum, bam, bam, bam. Blagged myself a Sally Rooney proof, didn't I? So for those of you who are new to the channel, Sally Rooney holds a close yet unsolidified place in my heart as the author of Normal People, one of the best books I've ever read, and Conversations with Friends, one of the worst books I've ever read. When I heard there was going to be a third book, I knew this was the decider. This is the tiebreaker. Is Sally Rooney for me? Can I trust her with my future hours of reading? Or was Normal People just a summer lovin', had me a blast? This took me a lot of sniffing around and groveling, begging emails to get my hands on a copy. And then when I did, I had to sign an NDA. It was a whole thing, but she's here now and I haven't actually read the blurb yet, so I'm going to read it with you. The book is called Beautiful World, Where Are You? A valid question to ask in 2021. And the blurb goes like this. Alice, a novelist, meets Felix, who works in a warehouse, and asks him if he'd like to travel to Rome with her. In Dublin, her best friend Eileen, come on Eileen, sorry, gets over a breakup and slips back into flirting with Simon, a man she has known since childhood. Do I sense a will they, won't they? Alice, Felix, Eileen and Simon are still young, but life is catching up with them. They desire each other, they delude each other, they get together, they break apart. They worry about sex and friendship and the world they live in. Are they standing in the last lighted room before the darkness bearing witness to something? Will they find a way to believe in a beautiful world? Now that doesn't sound plot heavy to me, Sally, but I trust you. I thought I'd vlog my feelings about the book while I read it, just for any of you who have similar book tastes to me and are also on the fence about whether to read this one. I'm packing it in my bag because me and Craig are about to drive to go and get Craig's second vaccine. We have to drive an hour north to get it. It's a long and boring story, but I'm hoping that I'm gonna get some reading done while he is in the vaccine centre, potentially passing out. Here's hoping. I'm gonna tell you that I'll miss you. I'll miss you if you go. Yes, I'm gonna let you know just how much I tell you. So I'm on my first trip, pretty much what it feels like ever, on a train to see some friends, and I am changing at Coventry, my noble hometown. Last night we got back from our vaccine. Yes, I said because they had spare vaccines, so they gave me a vaccine as well as Craig, which is very exciting. I'm now double jab, but it made me super grumpy. So here is some footage of me being super grumpy, but I was astute and I took notes of how I was feeling about the book, even if I was too grumpy to talk to the camera. Okay, what I was trying to say at the train station, but the announcer lady wouldn't let me, was that my notes so far on the book read thus. By page 12, there was clear class dynamics. By 16, there was capitalism. However, on page 14, she broke the fourth wall, and this was not on my bingo card. So I think if there was a Sally Rooney bingo card, quite a few of the hits have already been hit, but there is like a strange Sims-like dynamic to the way it's narrated. It's definitely a little bit different from both other books. For instance, this line on page 14, follow her eyes now and notice the bedroom door left open. And there's kind of like direct address telling the audience what to do with their eyes. And there's lots of parts where whoever the narrator is isn't committing to what the characters are actually thinking. You just get told what the characters are doing. And there's a part where they're at a book reading and the ominous narrator's like, who could tell whether Simon was engaged and interested or completely bored? Like, you're not allowed inside the characters' heads apart from in letter exchange, where they're in first person directly telling somebody else in the story how they feel, which I thought was very interesting. There have already been some really beautiful paragraphs in here, and also some sick burns at the literary industry, which I've heard Sally talk about before. I said it like I know her. Sally. I've heard Sally Rooney talk about before in interviews, like her frustration with the way the literature industrial complex works. But there's just some searing hot takes on that in here, which I'm sure I will discuss when I finish the book completely. But so far I'm on page 138 and I neither love nor dislike it. It's feeling quite lukewarm to me, even though some pages I'm like, I've got to copy that out, I've got to write that down somewhere, tattoo that to the sole of my foot. I need it with me always. So let's keep reading and I'll see how my feelings develop. Okay, here's your news bulletin. I finished the book and also I'm sweating like a dog. Congratulations, you're fully up to date. Lipstick is the only kind of makeup that I will personally permit on my own face, and thoughts are hard to come by in this heat, but I'm gonna give it the good old brownie guide try. This book, and not necessarily what's in the book, but the existence of the book, gave me a lot to think about when it comes to how I approach literature, how I score it, what I want from it, how much it matters what I want from it. To be honest, there's not much plot to spoil, but in the interests of trying to keep this spoiler free, I just want to read you out a passage that is not connected to the plot, apart from the fact that you need to know that Alice is one of the main characters and she is a young, famous literary novelist from Ireland who has recently gained international fame and fortune from her 2 contemporary novels. If Sally Rooney denies that this character is her, more power to her, go for it. But I imagine it doesn't come as an unexpected feat that people are going to start drawing parallels. Okay, the character Alice writes that she doesn't read contemporary novels anymore, even though she writes them. And she says it's because she knows too many authors. I see them all the time at literary festivals, drinking red wine and talking about who's publishing who in New York, complaining about the most boring things in the world. Not enough publicity, or bad reviews, or someone else is making more money. Who cares? Then they go away and they write their sensitive little novels about real life. The truth is, they know nothing about real life. Most of them haven't so much as glanced up against the real world in decades. These people have been sitting with white linen tablecloths laid out in front of them and complaining about bad reviews since 1983. This is not unfamiliar territory for my brain, having worked in the publishing industry for a long time, and it definitely doesn't encapsulate everybody, but it is also half accurate and very funny. Why don't they write about the kind of lives they really lead and the kind of things that really obsess them? Why do they pretend to be obsessed with death and grief and fascism when really they're obsessed about whether their latest book will be reviewed in the New York Times? Oh, and many of them have come from normal backgrounds like me, by the way. They're not all children of the bourgeoisie. The point is that they've stepped out of ordinary life. If novelists wrote honestly about their own lives, no one would read novels, and quite rightly. Silently chuckles at the back of class. And then she talks about how the system of literary production takes authors out of their real lives, shuts them up in a corner over there, tells them how important their opinions are, but stops them being able to return to their real lives and therefore write about real things. And then she talks about how the novel often functions to suppress the truth of life, because that's the function of a novel, is to essentialize things and pack them up into a small box. So without that paragraph, my criticisms of this book would have been not much plot, not loads to say apart from in the letters that were incredibly written between the characters and like gave off very strong Sheila Hetty vibes, incredibly written, and then the stark contrast of just having their normal lives described to you. So in that way, it didn't function well as a novel for me, but it did function well as a bit of an art piece. And I think that's what she's trying to say with this book, is that most people's lives have incremental change, very boring features to them, not much to see on a day-to-day basis, which is kind of like what I was talking about in my You're Not the Main Character video, which I'll link up here, and something that I totally agree with. So I quite like it in that respect, and there were loads of parts of it that I was underlining. How we interact with doom, how powerful are we as humans, lots to have red wine meltdowns to. However, I'm stuck with the fact that I didn't have an amazing reading experience with this book. And is it Sally Rooney's job to give me a great reading experience? I don't know, but she did it so well with normal people. What an experience. No, it's probably not, but then in the same way that like I always struggle with like what this channel is, and the only way that I can really make peace with it is to just be like, it's entertainment. If I've entertained you, I've done my job. If I've educated you by accident, then I guess great, but I'm not claiming to want to educate you. I would just want to share my thoughts and entertain you in some way. So in that way, this book is Sally Rooney sharing her thoughts on the artifice of life, but to demonstrate that, she puts us through what can only be described as what felt like a test. A very arduous walk through the lives of some normal people, where you don't get to hear their thoughts, they don't say anything particularly of note, and nothing that much happens. I would liken it to the textbook that's hidden in the book 1984, or like all of the very precise measurements and stuff that I've heard are in Moby Dick. Like, I felt that this could have been a really great small collection of letters between two characters, and it would have been beautiful in the same way that 84 Charing Cross Road is beautiful. But I can't give it 5 out of 5 stars if I were to really believe in the star system, because I only enjoyed about a quarter of the book, those letters. Is that the fault of Sally Rooney? No, she was probably trying to teach me a lesson, but maybe the lesson here is I actually am no longer looking for that with novels. I don't really want like an art house piece anymore, which is why after reading this, I moved straight on to Treasure Island. And after that, I'll probably pick up The Murderer's Ape or The Series of Unfortunate Events. I feel like after it you do need a palate cleanser, and maybe that's me, having worked in an incredibly literary imprint for quite a few years before I quit publishing. I had to read a lot of literary novels, like contemporary literary novels that I didn't always necessarily think were great. And I think that the point here is that this book doesn't have the mass appeal that Normal People did, and potentially Conversations with Friends did. And why should it? The character that I was talking about that could be perceived as Sally in the book has written 2 great novels and says quite openly, as Sally has also said in interviews, maybe I only have 2 great novels in me. Maybe I'm just a 2-novel kind of person and I just need to get on with the rest of my life. However, this is her 3rd book that she obviously did feel like writing, and she signed a 2-book deal. So we definitely have another book coming from her in the coming years, which means that she doesn't, sorry, I'm just using this as a fan now, that's what it is to me. Which means that she doesn't think that she's a 2-trick pony, and she is going to continue to write, which I'm excited about. But a reader and writer relationship is a 2-way street, right? And I think from now on I'll probably read the blurb and be like, are you writing a romance that spans many, many years and sounds like it has several plot points as well as several quotable lines? I'm in, I'm getting in the car, don't even stop for snacks, let's go. Are you writing another book like this, or Conversations with Friends? Happy for you, go on your way, enjoy your art. I'll be over here reading Let Me Stick It again. I'm definitely gonna be writing down some quotes from this book before I pass it on, because some of the letters help me really think about my own opinions, about identity politics, what can possibly be changed. And overall, I liked what I think was supposed to be the message of the book, which was that if the world does end or humanity becomes extinct, is it all doom, or is it kind of, in a sick way, beautiful that we were all so obsessed with each other's lives and our interpersonal relationships and the small parts of our lives because our human brains can't grasp big catastrophes, big changes, and in that way will we become extinct from loving each other and our immediate people too much. She says it much better in the book, and lest I bore you, I won't read it out to you. But ultimately, without telling you spoilers, the way this book ends I think demonstrates that there is beauty in the small things, and the big things can be thought about at leisure but don't always make up our real lives. I think if you're more of a literary fan, as I'm realizing that I may not be, I think that you'll really enjoy this book. Potentially if you enjoyed Conversations with Friends as well, you might like this book more, because perhaps what I didn't like about this book is also what I didn't like about Conversations with Friends. So maybe the wisdom I can offer you is that if you are a Normal People stan but you didn't like Conversations with Friends, this one will probably be a 3 out of 5 stars kind of thing for you. Are you gonna read Beautiful World, Where Are You? What are your thoughts on all of the blah, blah, blah I just spilled? Is there a good way to critique art if you know it's doing what it intended to do, even if you don't like it? Is it possible for somebody living an ordinary life to write a book that will entertain other people who already have ordinary lives? Or do you just want a book with dragons? This video was made possible and free to you by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure they keep happening. Here are some videos that you might like. I don't know, I'm not the boss of you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video, and until next time, Frog Snog out.